And good morning, Jay Cleveland Payne here with your Friday, April 1st, 2022 edition of Things You Might Have Heard. This is a fairly quick little news blurb that's going to provide you today 5 stories that you might not have gotten to in your long read of the newspaper because they were not exactly above the fold, page 1. These are stories that are pretty interesting. Actually, some of them actually pretty important in the long scheme of things, but not necessarily going to be splattered over the chyrons all day long. When you have literal war going on, the war part gets in there all the time, and sometimes the little bits and pieces that may drive the wars or drive the little wars that some of us care more about than others out there as well. We like to provide you that which to hear it as part of our mission with the Conversation Project. Go to this is theconversationproject.com for more information about why we do the Conversation Project and what it is and how it's been in the past and how you can hook up with us for sponsorships and for partnerships and just for general information for conversation. That's what we're here for. We use the power of the internet and you to aggregate and basically sort of get a good idea of what stories are more interesting than others. And so we thank you for that. We'll explain how that all works towards the end of the program as well. Story number 1 for this morning is this one right here. Putin says Russia will enforce ruble payments for gas from Friday. Reuters.com gave us this one, and today is Friday, and so today is the day. Now, what I did not know about the world gas market was the fact that pretty much everybody buys gas on American dollars, which is why it's basically rated in dollars. How many dollars is a barrel of oil? Now, that means President Putin has to have access to dollar bills to buy or to actually to sell his oil so that he can transfer back to rubles for his people. Russia is putting the kibosh on that and saying if you're buying oil from Russia, as of right now, the dollar standard is dead, literally as of right now or right now, Russia time, Friday Russia time, and you will now must purchase your oil and gas from Russia in the currency of rubles directly. How this will actually work in a ripple effect, nobody knows yet. Will anybody actually stick to this thing? Well, Russia exports about a good amount of oil. They sell a good chunk of it. They export about 40% of the market out there. Although, as people say, it's not exactly great, dirty gas, if you will. The emissions up there, not so strong. But we will see whether Putin can recoup some losses in the money game by making people pay rubles directly and not pay dollars for their oil and gas. Story number 2, and this one got in there, really pushed out a couple of actual good stories. I would say better stories to get into, but we are about follow up here, and this is one that has to essentially count as my redo for yesterday. Yesterday, when we talked about the possible disciplinary actions that the Academy was going to levy on Will Smith that they were talking about. And one of the things that I said was, and a very popular story around the world was, Will Smith was actually asked to leave the Oscars after the incident and did not leave, of course, winning a trophy 40 minutes after the slap. Here's a headline from Variety. Will Smith was not formally asked to leave Oscars following Chris Rock's slap, claims source. So apparently we, the collective world, the journalistic world, everybody was duped into believing this small little fact in this dust up back and forth. This dust up back and forth is going to be in the news for a few more days, I'm pretty sure, maybe a few more weeks, as we discuss the ramifications of the personal lives of the people and just sort of how we deal with this, how we process things on a psychological level in general. But apparently Will Smith was not asked to leave following Chris Rock's scuffle there. That whole thing was a false story that turned into a real story, that turned into real facts that were presented in a lot of stories. So this is me, essentially my mea culpa for yesterday's story, and saying that using one of the spots to basically make sure we set the record straight that according to sources, the story about Will Smith being asked to leave, even though we were kind of confused on how the Academy could get together, that story was false. Story number 3, Fox News hires Caitlyn Jenner as contributor and commentator, APnews.com. Now, this is a weird one. This is a really weird one because if you watch Fox News and you know who Caitlyn Jenner is, Caitlyn Jenner used to be Bruce Jenner. Now that Bruce Jenner is now a woman who used to be an Olympic champion back in the 70s, goes by Caitlyn, used to be married to in the Kardashian family in some weird sense of a it's all makes no sense, and that's at that area. But Caitlyn Jenner is now going to be a official contributor to Fox News programs. In fact, I believe he started last night on Tucker Carlson, and no, that was not a pre-April Fool's Day joke. What is happening is Caitlyn Jenner has a lot more pull as a commentator now, because Caitlyn Jenner just ran for governor and obviously did not win in the recall election of Gavin Newsom. We'll get back to him in a moment. But now that she is a former gubernatorial candidate and has actually played actively in politics, getting the word from Caitlyn Jenner is more important. However, we do have a network and sort of a fan base, if you will, who are not exactly the kindest people to, i.e. Homosexual or transgender people, which Caitlyn Jenner, being a former man, is a transgender person. I'm not sure how this is actually going to play in the world of politics. Yes, Caitlyn Jenner actually did run as a Republican and run as a more or less conservative. Her ideas didn't make any sense. She really was half a campaign, but we're going to see more of Caitlyn Jenner. You'll now have more of Caitlyn Jenner to kick around, oddly enough, because Fox News is going to bring her on more in more cases. What she has to say, whether she joins the echo chamber or says anything that's actually of news value, that will be determined in the future as her various appearances do pan out. And here's one that may not so pan out so well for folks out there in the crowd. This is like essentially the fourth time I think I've seen this, but one more time, there's been a new study that says that ivermectin is not effective. In fact, this one says does not reduce risk of hospitalization for COVID-19. abcnews.go.com is our source for this one. This was a big deal yesterday. And the big deal about it yesterday is ivermectin is a part of the large fight of people who are looking for the freedom to do what they want to do in dealing with coronavirus, and the freedom to get their own research for what's going on, because, the doctors aren't going to tell them whatever, and to seek alternative means of activity. Ivermectin, which is known as a animal dewormer, has some medical uses for people, but at the levels that essentially people were being asked to use, or people asking to get to use for this, there is essentially no good use for it, and extremely dangerous. Now, this is not necessarily a jab at the Joe Rogan crowd, or people who are saying, well, I took it and it kept me safe. He also did not get COVID-19. So we don't know how it would work if he actually had gotten infected with COVID-19, whether these pre-medical things were the work. Remember, there are a lot of things you can do for for prevention of stuff. You can take lots of vitamin C to prevent a cold, but you have to actually, have to know that you've actually been in contact with people with a cold and had a good chance of catching it, as opposed to just saying, oh, Joan had a cold and was in the conference room, and I sat in the other in the conference room, so I did not catch it. That's because you had no actual contact with Joan on the other side of the conference room. You have to have, actual proof that your body has been infected or attempted infection by some sort of virus, some sort of illness, something going on, and that it's been fought back by the drug. That's how tests work. Not just I took it and I didn't get sick, even though I'm always 12 feet apart from people and I live in a glass box because I work in a studio. It's one of those things. Right now, the sources say ivermectin does not reduce the risk of hospitalization for COVID-19. So if you are trying to take it for fear of going to the hospital, I don't think it's going to work. Whether it works to cut down the disease, this article, this story, this study wasn't on that. This is for prevention. Ivermectin, not the best for prevention per se, this article. One more quick news story before we take a break for a bit of commercial spots. Yay. California Task Force votes 5-4 to limit black families for slavery reparations. NewYorkPost.com gave us this one. And yes, this was kind of a setup. We put this down as the teaser story for yesterday, and you guys wanted to talk into this one. Now, bearing the lead, California is about to pay out reparations. So deeper stories into the reparation story basically said, if you can prove that you are of black descent, you have family that lived in California in a certain time area, then you will be up for some semblance of reparations. What they are, what they mean, how they'll play out. They're still working that out. That's why this task force was put together. But right here, as I look towards the side to read a bit, the task force voted 5-4 after hours of debate, and at times became heated. A proposal for recommendation is expected to be released by July 2023 before before it could go before the state legislature for a vote. A lot of befores there when it wrote that, written that way. Lisa Holder, a task force member and civil rights attorney, said the task force should continue to listen to the public's options while working with economists to carve out a plan. As we say, the plan's not out there. The plan's not quite set in stone, granite, or wet concrete. But by July 2023, Californians are going to have a plan to pay out reparations to African American slave descendant type people. We will see what it is, how much it is, how it works, and whether other states, places here in the United States mostly, are going to jump on the bandwagon. Chances are it's going to be a no, but we have to see this one play out first. California, obviously a much more liberal-ish state. We'll see what happens on that end. So let's take a look at a quick break for commercials. Yay. We're going to talk about Fundrise. Fundrise is a great way to get your investments more diversified as it gets you into real estate investment. Go to our website. This is theconversationproject.com/Fundrise. This is theconversationproject.com/Fundrise, and check out what you can get from Fundrise. It is a platform that works pretty much like any other mutual fund or IRA or any other fund you do. You offer up money into an account and you offer up into a different types of funds, and they will go out there and manage the funds that you put in there to buy more real estate and give you dividends. That's how it works. So far, so good in my role here at Fundrise as an actual investor, where things are going great so far. Obviously, it's early in the market. Only been investing for a few months into the system, and things are going well. You can set up monthly deposits so that you can use this more or less as your source to fund in your extra ways to get in your investments. And the cool thing about it is if you click on the link we have at thisistheconversationproject.com/Fundrise, you get your first 90 days with no advisory fees. Now, how do they make money? They take fees from the money that you put into, and as they work for advisory, take a small percentage of those funds. And for the first 90 days, you can put in anything you want to with no fees. So you can see how it works. You can check out a perspective. You can check out different land stuff, and they will give you bits and pieces of your actual information as they buy and sell properties. So it's a really managed fund. It's a legit thing. So check it out. Go to thisistheconversationproject.com/Fundrise and finally get your foot into real estate without having to go buy a fixer-upper and put the nails and boards in yourself. Fundrise will take care of all the work for you. And for the next 90 days, you get no advisory fees for all your work. Now, let's go to our teaser story right now. This is a story that we may talk about come Monday. So it's going to take a while for the story to actually see if it lives on throughout the entire weekend. We're going to cover stories from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and early Monday when we come back, convene for another episode of Things You Might Have Heard. But this is something that you might want to talk about. So you let us know. This is the story coming from the Hill, or at least our version of it. But this is big news, and big news for a guy like me who actually is type 2 diabetic on insulin. House passes bill to cap the cost of insulin. The cost should be capped to about $35 for a general vial of insulin. Your general vials may vary, but you may see a very big drastic drop depending on how you're buying your insulin, where you're getting it for, because we have found those folks out there who don't have the right billing insurance, don't have the right copay set up, the right policy set up, that getting insulin every day is a issue. Now, if you're doing well on your insulin, then that's great, but they bring everything down. The cost of insulin, the cost to produce insulin is basically minuscule, basically simple, but it's just essentially the times we live in where, anybody who owns a drug can basically up the price. Let's think about, Farmer Bro himself. We can talk about more about this come Monday if you decide to vote this one up as a story inside of the Feeds with Engagement. What does all that mean? What does the feeds thing mean? What are you talking about, Mr. J. Cleveland Payne? Well, Mr. J. Cleveland Payne is talking about a few things built on our conversation project. Go by our main website. This is theconversationproject.com for, as we said, more information about the project, ways you can help us keep the project going by hitting the sponsorships page. That's all our sponsor we have for this great project. I'll go to the partnerships page and be a part of the partnership. We're going to work on ways to give more shout outs to partners coming up in the future. So check out all the details on that. Plus, what we is all about at the Conversation Project. The feeds are on Facebook and Twitter. Every 50 minutes or so, we post a brand new news story throughout the day, 24/7, to give you and the algorithms a chance to tell us what stories make the difference. So if you check your feed on Facebook, we're at This is the Conversation Project, and on Twitter, th_conversation, you will see the news stories. Just like them, love them, hate them, share them, be involved in them, be engaged with them. The higher the engagement score, the better chance we get a chance of talking about it. Mondays, we go through the stories from Friday evening or Friday morning all the way to Monday morning about 5 a.m. And we will pull from the top 30 engaged stories and give you 7 of them. We may bump that up a little bit. We're trying to keep this pithy, so time is going there. Tuesday through Friday, we only go through the top 15 stories because there are literally about 30 or so stories in a day, as opposed to 90 or so stories for the weekend. And we give you the top 5 stories, or we'll give you 5 stories from the top 15 that are the most relatable today. Like we said, it's hard fought because there are other good stories to get in there, but we decided not to add an extra story today because we want to do the correction on Will Smith and use that slot as a slot. We may have a correction slot later to make this work out better. We shall see. If you want to watch this thing on YouTube, maybe watch it on Facebook, or maybe someone sent you a clip of this. The main channel for this on YouTube is thisisaconversationproject.com/YouTube, or that's the link of their page that takes you to the link. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell button so you get the notifications when we go live about 5:45, 5:50 every single weekday morning, Monday through Friday, Central Time, coming out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Straight out of Little Rock, yo. So there's all that stuff going on. Also, some things you might not have known today is birthdays for this April 1st, April Fool's Day, of course. Ally McGraw turning 83 years old today. That is amazing. But Ally McGraw, 83 years old? It seems like, the 80s was last week, but no, the 80s was, 50 years ago. Yes. Rachel Maddow, the talker on MSNBC, and now doing books and TVs and movies and other stuff. She's 49 years old today, and who may be the breakaway star from this weekend's WrestleMania, Logan Paul, in a match teaming up with The Miz to take on the legendary Mysterios. That's father and son Rey Mysterio Jr. and his son, who are now tag team partners. He, being Paul, 27 years old today. Also, as I said, April Fool's Day. So being that we are year 3 of the pandemic, please be gentle with your fool jokes. There are some people who still are just don't have the time for it. One more thing you might not have known for today, a recent poll went out from Quinnipiac, I believe. They asked Americans, would you stay and fight or leave the country if you're faced with the situation going on in Ukraine? We'll have a lot of brave people who are loving Ukraine and putting up stickers and wearing flags and changing Facebook profiles. But if, let's say, something happened here, let's say Red Dawn actually showed up here on the border of the United States, are you going to stay or are you going to go? 55% said they would stay, they would take up arms, and they would fight as normal civilians. Only 38% said they would leave. So that's where that poll stands. Now that this poll is being published, there'll be more discussions on what we would do. I'm saying we as a person sitting in the United States in these situations, since they seem like they're almost impossible, yet here we are in 2022 watching Russia border through the borders of Ukraine for whatever made-up reasons Mr. Putin came up with. And that is going to be it for this day's version, the April Fool's Day version. Yes, it's April Fool's Day, but no fools. All stories, all details, everything we said was pride and true for Friday, April 1, 2022. Jay Cleveland Payne is here, and we're going to, sign out for the weekend. Obviously, getting ready for a full day of working for the weekend. Lots of stuff for great stuff in the weekend. And we will be posting news stories all weekend long, every 50 minutes on the feeds. Make sure you follow them at th_conversation on Twitter. This is a Conversation Project on Facebook. And yes, stop by the main website and stop by and see if you want to partner up with us to keep good things going on and to hit sponsorships to also help keep things going on. Lots of great feedback this week. What's going on? People liking what we're doing with some of the formats and some of the pieces and some of the visuals as well. So thank you so much for all that coming in. Big ups to my mother-in-law, Sharon Green, watching us live this morning. Thank you so much for all the love and support that you give to me on this one. So thank you with that. Also, see anybody else who popped in live as well to give comments to, and also Christina with the K popping in as well, saying good morning. Give us a comment, whether you're coming in on this thing live anytime or watching this thing in the future, which of course is basically 2 minutes after I hit stop. So we know where you're at, what's going on, and what we can do to make things better. And sometimes, places that you tell me I could go. and we'll discuss that offline. In the meantime, more news, more stuff, more conversations with the best people to have conversation with. That is people like you. Jay Cleveland Payne out for the day. We will do this all over again Monday morning with more things you might not have heard.